20-05 and 20-28. And stay safe, stay healthy. The City of Auburn is holding public meetings virtually at this time. City of Auburn Resolution number 5581 designates City of Auburn meeting locations for all regular, special, and study session meetings of the City Council and of committees, boards, and commissions of the city as virtual locations. All right, and with that, Council, if you will please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If you would please be seated. And Sean, if you will please call roll.
Deputy Mayor DeCoursey.
Here.
Councilmember Baggett.
Here.
Councilmember Brown.
Here.
Councilmember J. Raj.
I'm here.
Councilmember Malinga.
Here.
Councilmember Stern.
Here.
Councilmember Trout Manuel.
Oops, I think you are muted on your phone. Just so that we have the voice recording of you.
Here.
There we go. Thank you so much. All right. With that, we will move on. We do have one proclamation tonight. It's for Arbor Day, and I will read this into the record. Excuse me. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas 2021 is the 149th anniversary of the holiday, and Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. Whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and wherever they are planted, a resource of joy, beauty, and spiritual renewal. And whereas members of the Auburn Garden Club, statewide Washington Community Forestry Council, Department of Natural Resources, and the Auburn Urban Tree Board will join city officials and Auburn Parks Arts and Recreation Department employees in planting a tree at Lewis Lake Nature Park at 11 a.m. Thursday, April 27th, 2021, in honor of Arbor Day. And now, therefore, I, Nancy Backus, Mayor of the City of Auburn, do hereby proclaim April 27th, 2021, as Arbor Day in the City of Auburn, and urge our community to celebrate Arbor Day by supporting efforts to plant and protect trees and woodland areas for the well-being of our community for future generations. Dated this 19th day of April, 2021. All right, moving on to appointments. We have one appointment this evening to the Salary Commission. This is City Council to confirm the appointment of Grantley Martelly to the Salary Commission for a 4-year term to expire December 31st, 2024. Deputy Mayor DeCoursey.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to confirm the appointment of Grantley Martley to the Salary Commission.
Thank you. Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. I would second that motion.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor DeCoursey.
We welcome Grantley's participation to the Salary Commission. This is a very important position within the commissions in the city, and we're looking forward to his participation through 2024.
Thank you. Council, are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, if you would all unmute. All those in favor of Grantley Martelly to the Salary Commission, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Passes. Thank you. All right, I don't believe we have any agenda modifications this evening, Sean.
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. We have no new business. We have no public hearings this evening, so we will move to audience participation. And council, as you know, this is the place on the agenda where the public is invited to speak to the city council on any issue. Currently, it is virtual participation. Participants can submit written comments via mail, fax, or email. All written comments must be received prior to 5 p.m. on the day of the scheduled meeting and must be 350 words or less. Comments can be mailed to City of Auburn, attention Sean Campbell, City Clerk, 25 West Main Street, Auburn, Washington, 98001. Comments can be faxed to attention Sean Campbell, City Clerk, at 253-804-3116, or comments may be emailed to publiccomment@auburnwa.gov. Sean, would you please read into the record the public comment?
Yes, Your Honor. We had public comment from Jim Brass supporting ordinance 6817. We have public comment from Terry Porter, Mike Ward, Antonio Smith, David, Rob Jr., and Allison supporting ordinance 6817. We had public comment from Jan Guile supporting ordinance 6817. We had public comment from Zanita Reed supporting ordinance 6817. We had public comment from Tammy Rogers supporting ordinance 6817. We had public comment from Will Topspern opposing ordinance 6817. We had public comment from Jen Reeves supporting ordinance 6817. Public comment from Cheryl Rakes supporting ordinance 6817. Public comment from Debbie supporting ordinance 6817. Public comment from Bob Zimmerman regarding propane tank safety. Public comment from Wayne Osborne supporting ordinance 6817. Public comment from Seth Hadley supporting ordinance 6817. Public comment from Pastor LaShawn Lambert supporting ordinance 6817. Public comment from Josh Headley supporting ordinance 6817. Public comment from Herod Odom and Nate Caminos urging the council to do an equity study and continued collaboration if ordinance 6817 is passed. And public comment from Allison Moon opposing ordinance 6817.
Thank you, Sean. All right, we have no correspondence this evening for council review. We will move to ad hoc committee reports. Council ad hoc committee chairs may report on the status of their ad hoc council committee's progress on assigned tasks and may give their recommendation to the city council if any. We currently have 2 ad hoc committees. The first is finance, and that is Chair Baggett.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Council Ad Hoc Finance Committee, consisting of council members Jay Raj and myself, reviewed 127 pages of 2021 claims vouchers totaling $4.6 million, dated April 19th, 2021. The committee also reviewed payroll vouchers for the period March 31st through April 13th, 2021, in the total amount of $2.4 million. All questions by the committee for the finance department were answered to the committee's satisfaction. And upon completion of our review, we recommend council approval of these vouchers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Baggett. We also have Grocery Worker Hazard Pay Ad Hoc Committee, and that is chaired by Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. It's my pleasure to report that The ad hoc committee for retail grocery hazard pay has met twice with council member Jay Raj and Deputy Mayor DeCoursey as being part of that committee. And also just would report that we've been researching language and different approaches, and we will be coming forward with a recommendation.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. All matters listed on the consent agenda are considered by the City Council to be routine and will be enacted by one motion in the form listed. Deputy Mayor DeCoursey.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Councilmember Baggett.
I'll second that, Your Honor.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor DeCoursey.
Thank you, Mayor. The consent agenda consists of the minutes of the April 5th, 2021 regular City Council meeting, the minutes of the April 12th, 2021 study session, claims vouchers and payroll vouchers as described by Councilmember Baggett and recommended for approval by the Finance Ad Hoc Committee, and the Auburn Resource Center construction project, which is a project that has just been let by solicited bids, and it includes a number of items for the Auburn Resource Center, including building demising walls, bathroom renovation, electrical work, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning work, and door hardware work.
Thank you. Council, are there any questions or comments regarding the consent agenda? Seeing and hearing none, if you would all unmute. All those in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye.
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 All opposed, please say no. Passes. All right, we have no unfinished business, so we will move into ordinances. Ordinance number 6817, an ordinance relating to camping and occupying city property, amending ordinance number 6781 and chapters 2.22 and 9.50 of Auburn City Code. Deputy Mayor DeCoursey.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move to adopt ordinance number 6817.
Thank you. Councilmember Trout Manuel.
I second that, Mayor.
Thank you. And council, before we move into council comments and questions, we do have a staff presentation this evening. I believe that will be Director Jeff Tate, Kent Hay, our outreach coordinator, and perhaps Attorney Kendra Como. I will turn it over to Jeff at this time.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Deputy Mayor, City Council. For the record, Jeff Tate, Director of Community Development. So first of all, Ordinance 6817 is on page 38 of your packet, or that's where it starts. Obviously last week at City Council study session, we spent a fair amount of time talking about Ordinance 6817. But for the record, it was first introduced to City Council during that April 12th study session. Ordinance 6817 does a number of things, but one of the features that we want to talk a little bit more about tonight is the prohibition of camping on public property. So Ordinance 6817 makes clear that that's a prohibition for public property that's city-owned. But there are exceptions that are listed within that ordinance. And some examples of those exceptions from a prohibition are in areas like a campground. So at Game Farm Park, we have a campground. So that is exempt from the prohibition. Additionally, when there is an event that's sponsored or approved by the Parks Department, that would be exempt. So you might think of Mary Elson Park, where there are occasionally outdoor overnight activities as part of the farm operations. Additionally, the draft city code says that persons who are experiencing homelessness and where there is no available shelter on the day of that activity are exempt from that prohibition. So it's important to understand that that's the way that the language is worded, is that it calls out a specific exemption from this prohibition for those experiencing homelessness. And I want to maybe restate that in another way. And that is that the city won't or can't, under law, invoke any authority or penalty for a person who's experiencing homelessness when they are camping on a city-owned property. And the way that I would create or provide a sentence that kind of creates a string of logic here is that it's a prohibition on city property unless we are able to offer services, homeless shelter services, as well as transportation to get to those services. And those, we can confirm that those services are available. And a person then refuses to accept those services and also refuses to leave the property. So the scenario in the field looks like this. An individual is approached, they're camping on a public-owned property, city-owned property. We check with our local shelter provider. We check with other shelter providers that are part of the King County and Pierce County systems. If there is space available that suits their needs, because not every shelter suits everybody's needs in case a individual has children or has pets or some other needed requirement. If we find a shelter space that evening and we make arrangements for the individual to get to that shelter and they accept those services, there is no penalty for any of that sort of interaction. If an individual chooses not to accept those services, they still have a right to leave that property. There is no penalty if the individual chooses to leave the property. The penalty is triggered when someone chooses not to leave the property and those services are available. A couple things, follow-up items from last week's presentation. First of all, I want to thank Councilmember Brown for spending time with Kent Hay out in the community. That's very much appreciated to see what is experienced firsthand. Additionally, Councilmember Stearns had some questions about the LEAD program and the drug court. So City Attorney Kendra Como did email out earlier in the day today some responses and to both LEAD and drug court and how those operate. Also want to point out, as Sean read into the record, we received a number of letters from folks who are commenting on Ordinance 6817. Some of those comment letters come from areas or organizations that are located within Auburn, and some of those comments come from individuals and organizations outside of Auburn. And I think it's important to pay note to where those comments are coming from and what the community is seeking in response to. Really is what we believe a compassionate approach, a service-first approach to assisting our homeless population. I hope that it was heard loud and clear last week during our presentation that service first is fundamental to our approach. It is the core of our approach. Penalties are not the favored approach. It is all about leading with service and compassion and trying to help people get the assistance they need. And every individual that's out there needs a different kind of assistance. So it's very much a customized approach, person by person. I also want to indicate that we did have a productive conversation with a group of folks last week, the Lived Experience Coalition. And I think that my impression from that conversation is that as we talk more about the approach, there's more understanding and acceptance of what that approach is. And while I'm not going to say that every individual or every group that we talk to, that we're going to get consensus on every word in the approach, but the fundamentals of the approach, the service first philosophy, of ensuring that we're connecting people to services is something that I don't think anybody can argue with. One of the things that we thought might be useful in terms as council discusses the ordinance and moves forward on a potential, on a vote on the ordinance, is that it might be good for us to make commitments back to council and the community that we're providing monthly or quarterly reports, informing council and informing our community of the numbers of interactions that we're having and how successful we are with the service first approach. Because I think that what we will be able to show is that the large volume of folks that we interact with are accepting of services, want services, and maybe not the day that we approach them, but the next day that we approach them and the day after. So it's an ongoing conversation sometimes with folks. So I think being able to inform city council and our community of what we believe will be very successful in terms of delivering those services might be a good communication protocol to put in place. As well and we've done this with other ordinances over the years, but ensure that we come back to city council with something like an annual report, or maybe it needs to be 6 months in, but some sort of ability for council and the community to see how the program has been implemented and what kind of data and numbers of the folks that we're interacting with, and what happens with each of those interactions. Additionally, one thing that might be useful to consider as well is because there is a penalty for the very rare instance where we're not able to get someone connected to services because they're not in a place to accept it or want to accept it, for us to make a commitment that we wouldn't issue any sort of trespass penalty for at least the first 30 days of the program. So, on that point, it does get a little bit of attention on that part of the program, but we really believe that that's a very infrequent, very seldom used need to get to that point, because we do believe strongly that Kent's approach out in the field is with the service first model will be highly successful that way. So with that, I would maybe I'll turn it back to the mayor real quick to see if she would like any other staff to comment before moving forward.
Thank you. Kent, I believe you had some comments that you wanted to share, so I will turn it over to you.
Yeah, no, I know. I concur with what Jeff is saying, and definitely this is a service first approach. I'll just tell you, today I went out with one of the people that I recently housed. Is a young lady with the 5 children who's been out in our park for many years. And the funny part about this is, so I've been working with her trying to, we made we had some groundwork where she still stays outside a lot of nights, but also stays inside. So, we're working on that, trying to get her to feel comfortable staying inside again. And I know where her encampment is, and she invited me over there and to see what was going on. And so we made a understanding that she'll keep the place clean while we continue to work on this. But she's been calling because she wants to help other people. So she's helped me get some people connected to housing, which is awesome. And then today she was on the trail, they're in an urban trail, and we were talking. And she wants to do the work that I'm doing, and she believes in what we're doing here. And so one of the things I had talked to her about was, at first when I was talking to her about the ordinance, because she hadn't heard about it, she wasn't on board with it. But as we talked further about my constant coming out to her and constantly approaching her and making sure she understood that she's not invisible and that she matters. And then she finally took the services, and she took the services for the kids, which is awesome. But one of the things I want her to remember when we're talking is that if people stayed out in the area where they're invisible, and people believe they don't matter, people act like they don't matter. So just because you don't see them, doesn't mean that they're not there and that they're not people. And I told her, the word homeless is people. She's a person. I get a lot of questions about, am I scared to go out by myself when I go out and approach people? And I said, scared of who? These are people. They're not homeless as people. These are people that we have forgotten and left out there for a long period of time. And one of the questions I asked her was, if I never came out here and constantly came out here, and put a little pressure on you, where would you be at now? And she understood that she would still be out there because nobody was coming to see her. Nobody believes that they exist out there. They're for the day, for the moment. They're not working on getting out of the situation. The longer that we leave them out there, the longer they stay homeless, the harder it is for them to go back inside. The fear of failure, the fear of forgetting how to pay bills, how to take the garbage out, how to vacuum the floor, how to just do things that we take for granted have all but disappeared. And so it's better to stay outside than to go inside. So once, let's just say housing is available for everybody, the majority of people would rather stay outside because of fear of failing and forgetting what it is to be treated like a human being. You're on mute, Mayor.
Thank you, Kent. Kendra, did you have anything you wanted to add to the discussion or just be available for questions?
I'm available for questions if any council member has them. I did want to reiterate what Jeff Tate shared, that I provided an email earlier today to address the council's concerns or requests for information from staff about the King County LEAD program and then King County's operation of a drug court. So in case you haven't reviewed your email, the city of Auburn through Kent Hayes' approach is operating what is akin to an informal LEAD program, offering services, diverting people, and making sure that we can provide all resources outside of invoking the criminal justice system at this point, and we'll continue to do so. And then in addition, when the Auburn Community Court is started, it will operate largely like the King County Drug Court. So there's additional information and links to the websites for those programs in that email. But I'm here to answer any questions and happy to do so.
Thank you, Kendra. Councilmember Trout Manuel.
I don't have a question. I just have. I don't have a question. I just have a statement. Still doing it.
See, I think you'll, if you, well, you are muted on your, on the screen. Oh,
Okay,
turn
can
your,
you hear me now?
yes, that's much better. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I don't have a question. I just have a statement. And I wrote it down because I wanted to articulate it. And, but I do want to thank, Mayor, thank you for letting me do this. But I want to thank all the nonprofit organizations and also the individuals that called me, our citizens that called me and wrote us emails that were opposed and for this. I'm kind of conflicted on this because I was one of those that voted against it back in September. And after going out and talking with Ken Hay and seeing what is happening out there in our wetlands, and also listening to our constituents and our business people on what's going on, and going out there and seeing with my own eyes how serious it is. Going to the 5 sites of 43, it was horrific to see the needles, the trash that was piled up, the bicycles, toys, clothes, the carts, the shopping carts that are out there in each one of those sites. Also, hearing the stories from Ken talking about the rapes, the beatings, seeing the place where a tent with 2 individuals were in, torched. I had to come back and search my heart to do the right thing tonight and look at the oath that I took when I was elected back in 2013. This has been long enough. It's getting worse every year and every year for us to keep putting a Band-Aid on the problem. Well, the Band-Aid has come off and it's time for us to do something. No disrespect to the nonprofits that wrote me and said they've been doing this for 30 years. I applaud you for the good work that you have been doing for so long, but it's time for us to look and see and hold people accountable for what their actions and hold ourselves accountable as well. We're talking about trespassing. We're talking about trespassing in public places, city land, and there are laws for those. Also, I have to be honest. We need to all come together with our local officials, county, state, and federal legislators to come up with a better solution for the homeless and for those that have fallen into despair due to not being able to catch up with their rents during this COVID. So I just am going to vote, and I'm really hoping that all of us do the right thing tonight to help Ken Hay on the good work that he is doing out there. And I saw him do first approaching those individuals with such dignity and respect that those people need from us as well. And Jeff, thank you for listening at our meeting when I suggested that we need to hold, as council members, need to hear from those individuals that are working, that we are supplying funds to, and they're supporting some of our people. We need to hear those success stories that are happening for our people in Auburn. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Trout Manuel. Deputy Mayor DeCoursey.
Thank you, Your Honor. I too share the sentiments of Councilmember Trout Manuel. You know, first let me say that Kent Hay, you are remarkable. Doing the things that you do, going out there and meeting these people every day, not just meeting them, knowing them by name. I brought a couple of issues to Kent in my neighborhood. He knew exactly who I was talking about, knew the exact circumstance of the individuals, knew all about their situation, and shared with me what he's been doing, what he's been trying to do to help people in that situation. When we look at us being on council meetings now for 14 months, seeing each other on a screen on a computer, not in council chambers because of a pandemic, we have a homeless epidemic. It's not just in Auburn, it's nationwide. In some respects, it's almost worldwide in developed countries. But we need to take care of Auburn. And Kent has told compelling stories. It's remarkable, the story of the woman with the 5 children. And from just last week to this week, a turnaround in her attitude of wanting to now participate in the solution of this issue. And I'm hoping and praying that she gets to that point where she spends 7 days a week inside instead of just 2 or 3 for her and her children. When we look at the videos that were shown to us, and unfortunately I've not been able to go out and be with Kent and to go through this, but I know what it is when we experience what we experience even on the videos and what we see and the results of it. And putting the cost aside, which could be upwards of $2 million in ongoing costs for cleanup of these areas, including the sensitive areas, environmentally sensitive areas. We are in the people business. As Councilmember Trout Manuel said, you know, we've all taken an oath of office. We represent our constituents. The people living out in the woods are also our constituents. We need to do what we should do and can do to facilitate, to assist, and to help. We've heard over and over again that service first is the tenet of what is going to happen. The last resort is issuing a trespassing citation and bringing people into the criminal justice system, the last resort. But that's not the end all be all. Because again, we've heard that getting into the community court, acting like a drug court, provides additional resources that people can take part of, which can wipe the slate clean for the criminal trespass charge and get them the fresh start that they need. Some people, as Kent said, have gotten so used to being invisible, they don't know how to be visible. That's a shame. That's really, really sad, really a shame. But that's the lifestyle they live. We know there's people out there who do not want to come inside, do not want help. We've got to find a way to encourage, to compel, and to get those people out of the lifestyle that they live and into a productive lifestyle that will change their lives for the rest of their lives. You know, there was a King County 10-year plan to end homelessness a few years ago. And guess what? It didn't end homelessness. We now have the King County Regional Housing Authority, which, by the way, some people are confusing with the King County Housing Authority because the initials are almost the same.
Homelessness Authority, Deputy Mayor.
Homeless Authority. I'm sorry. Thank you. Homeless Authority. And I had that written down as Homeless Authority, so I spoke. And I'm hoping that will bring some good things and good results for the region. I'm optimistic that it can and it will, as long as it doesn't take the same path we had with the 10-year plan to end homelessness. But we in Auburn now have an opportunity to go forward in a similar fashion that Redmond went forward in, but to go forward and to be able to provide greater assistance for those in greatest need with only the last resort of doing the trespassing charge, the last resort. And I think as the mayor spoke today, where she said that if we do 2 of those in a year, she would be surprised because we know the qualities of our staff. We know what Kent Hay can do. We need 10 Kents out there. We only have 1. But Kent, you're remarkable. I support you. I encourage you. You're doing fantastic work. And I'm here to continue to support that work tonight with this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councilmember Brown.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. I appreciate the opportunity. Tonight, I am speaking in opposition to Ordinance 6817. But I also want to begin by thanking the city staff, the directors, the mayor, who has shown years of dedication to help working on homelessness problems that we have, not just here in Auburn, but in our county as well. I want to really thank Outreach Program Administrator Kent Hay, who tirelessly serves our community by working with our folks that are experiencing homelessness here in our community. And, you know, there are well-meaning people on both sides of this issue. I honestly believe that everybody here wants to do the right thing. Now, I will say that in my life, I have not experienced homelessness. I've been blessed, but I've had members of my family that have. And what I have seen in my experience is that for people experiencing homelessness, the idea of a criminal charge for trespassing or even a fine does not move people. What moves people are people like Kent Hay. Kent Hay, who reaches out to these individuals. And I saw him last Thursday. And by the way, Mr. Hay, you walked my legs off and you worked so hard. And I am so impressed by the work that you do. I believe just what Deputy Mayor DeCoursey had to say is that what we need are 10 Kent Hayes. And we need to have affordable transitional housing for people. Whether or not there is enough housing, I think is part of the question here. I heard from a prominent member of this community on this idea of this ordinance, somebody that I respect a great deal. And a point that this person made in their communication was that the idea of doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is a definition of insanity. And I would agree with that. But I don't think any change is what we want to do. We want to make the right change. And I do not believe that establishing a criminal record or more of a criminal record or more of a fine, a burden for people that are in homeless situations are going to help get them out of that in most cases. I do think the relentless effort by good providers like Kent Hay and our social service partners in the community. I think we need to work more closely with Kent, and we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to get people to move out of the homeless situation that they're in. But that's done through persuasion. That is done by showing that we care. And I think that no matter how our members of this council vote on this tonight, I believe it's an expression of care. So thank you very much. I'll be voting no tonight.
Thank you, Councilmember Brown. And just one aside for you is when you were talking about needing more housing, permanent supportive housing, we are working with King County currently on their Health Through Housing initiative and identifying locations within Auburn and working through what that type of housing would look like. We are getting closer and closer every day. So I am very encouraged by what we have in our future.
Thank you for that work, Mayor.
Councilmember Stearns.
Thank you, Your Honor. And thank you, everyone who's spoken on this, and thanks to the staff for, all the work that they put into this. As we said before, this is a hard issue, and it's an emotional issue because we're dealing with people's lives, and we're also, to some degree, looking into a mirror. I can only speak for myself, but I know people in my family, who've been homeless. And so, this is an issue that for us, for our staff, for our constituents, it hits home and it hits hard. Like Council Member Brown, I'm going to be voting against it. At the end of the day, the idea of putting a criminal threat over someone's head is not going to address the cause of homelessness. And that is definitely not going to make a homeless person's life any better. It's only going to worsen it. If someone has, and I want to specifically talk about, chronic homelessness, and since that's what, the last slideshow we had really dealt with encampments. But, if there are people who are chronically homeless and they have mental health issues, they need behavioral health services, they need recovery services because they have addictions. Spending time in jail is only going to make their life worse, far more worse. And the reality is it's going to make it harder for them to get a job and to get a house and to maintain those things. I really want to just point out that, I saw an article today in the Seattle Times, I'm sure you guys did too. But what we are doing right now, the current law that we have in our books in Auburn is being in a city park when it's closed or camping on city property. That is a civil infraction. It's not a crime. And what this ordinance does is it makes it a crime. I have spent a lot of time in my career, working to turn the tide against criminalization. I don't want to see a new pathway into the criminal justice system created. And I really don't want to see that happen when we know it's going to disproportionately affect people of color. And we spent a lot of time, I want to say 40 hours, but our race and diversity training, we're supposed to think about how this affects people of color. We know that in King County, Black people are 6% of the total population, but 29% of the homeless are Black. 10% of the population in King County are Hispanic, and 12% are homeless. The homeless population are Hispanic. For me, Native Americans, 1% of us, we make up King County, but 4% of the homeless are Native. Pacific Islanders are 1% of King County and 2% of the homeless population. And then of all homeless families in King County, 50% of homeless families with children were Black. So there's no way around it that, putting in a criminal penalty is going to disproportionately affect people of color. And I'm just opposed to doing that and to adding another pathway into the criminal justice system. I mean, I agree with everyone that we can make a difference. Service first does work. All we've heard really have been really amazing stories about how Service First has helped people, but you do not have to have a criminal threat hanging over someone's head for Service First to work. And then I'll just simply say that, housing and homelessness, the issues are huge and they're getting worse. The principal driver of homelessness is that housing growth has not kept pace with economic growth here in King County. And that means the gap between housing supply and demand has driven up prices to a point where the poorest can no longer afford housing without public support. We need housing. We need transitional shelter. We need supportive housing. We need permanent housing. All of those things are actually real solutions. A while back, I believe it was last year, Council Member Trout Manuel raised the issues of tiny houses. There are other approaches. It's a little bit out of this, but the Valley Cities, the blockable housing, which is permanent supportive housing, those are really fantastic. I really enjoyed seeing them. So I hope we can, really focus on the actual causes of homelessness. We're not going to, we're not going to change anything. If we waved a magic wand and today, the camps along the Green River and the White River disappeared, they're going to be back because homelessness is growing. And what we're doing is not addressing the problem. It will not go away by threatening people with a night in jail or a weekend in jail or 90 days in jail and a fine. That is not going to stop the tents, the people living in cars, the people using our shelters from coming. They will continue to come. And until we address that, we're going to see those same slides that Director Tate shared with us earlier. They will just not disappear. So, I don't think we're tackling the right problem. And for the people we're putting into the path of criminal justice, we're only going to make their lives worse. So those are the reasons I'm opposing this new ordinance, and I would encourage my council members to do the same. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't believe I see any other council members. Kent, did you have more comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of push back and address some of that. So thanks for all the numbers in King County. One thing is I do collect data in Auburn, and the people that I see, the majority of people out here that are homeless are Caucasian. And so I know we keep throwing that around, and that's true, your statement, but I think we're talking about Auburn. And again, like I said, the majority of people that I work with or go out to are not people of color that are homeless in Auburn. One of the things I wanted to talk about was, so, there's a couple that I found on the Green River Trail, and they were camping on Auburn property, and they moved over to Kent property. So there's a line in between Auburn and Kent. And so I've been working with them. I've been to their camp numerous times. They reached out to me because they saw me working with someone that was camping on one of our sidewalks over there on Auburn Way North and 37th Street, a guy that I've been working with for a while. And they saw me interacting with them, and they came out of nowhere and said, "Hey, are you helping that guy?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "We need some help." And I said, "Okay." So I started working with them, and it's been difficult because they're going to have challenges staying in housing, him and his girlfriend. But today they texted me and told me that they finally got into housing and they'll be moving in May, right? So chronically homeless, they're definitely going to need a lot of support. The reason why I tell you that story is because if you continue to leave people and think that people are going to be able to somehow figure this out, right? Like one day they're just going to wake up and say, I need to make all these calls. I need to start working here and doing this to get out of this situation. They won't do that, right? They'll stay there. And so one of the guys I work with, like I said, is 14 years homeless. He has lost 4 of his toes on 1 foot. I guarantee after this next winter, he might lose his big toe, and then he won't have any toes on his feet. He has a hard time thinking about even going into housing. So when we talk about housing, you could build all the housing that you want to. There are people out here who are not going to go into housing because we left them out there so long that the fear of failing, the fear of how do I pay my rent? How do I take the garbage out? Those little things, again, like I said, we take for granted. We have left these people out here and pretending like they haven't existed for so long that they don't know how to participate in life any longer, and they've given up. So when we go out there, or when I go out there and I make contact with these people, and the guy said, "Why are you so persistent? Why do you keep finding me?" And I said, "Because you matter." So he hid from me for a long time, and then one day he decided, okay, I'll take the help now. And he got in the car and we started working on this. And we're this close to getting him into housing. Is he going to stay in the housing? Probably not without a lot of support. And so, I tell those stories because, again, I think if you think that leaving people out here to figure this out on their own, the more people that keep coming into Auburn, because there's new people now that I've met just recently that are camped on private property, and I made my way into that area and talked to them, and they just got here. They only been here a week. So the chronically homeless that are in Auburn, once the new people start coming, those people are going to be more chronically homeless. And then the new people that are coming, and we're just going to compound the amount of people out here that are never going to get services because we think that leaving people out there is humane.
Thank you, Kent. And I see Councilmember Stearns and Deputy Mayor DeCoursey. Do any of the council members who have not spoken yet choose to make comment? If not, I'll move to Councilmember Stearns. Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think the deputy mayor was ahead of me. Oh, wait, he's waving off. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Your Honor. Can I just quickly share a screen like we did the last time? Sean, or someone?
Sure. What is it that you're wanting to share, Councilmember Stearns?
It is a slide of homelessness in King County.
Okay.
How do I do? that. Oh, wait, here, there's a share screen button. Sorry. I think that's it.
And
Share.
Councilmember Stearns, can you make sure you email me that slide after the meeting?
Yes, I will. No, I'm terrible at this. Is that being
So
shared?
we can see your homelessness disproportionately affects people of color slide. Yes.
Right. So I've got, yeah, that is the slide where based on the King County homelessness dashboard. So those are the numbers provided by King County. And then there's a thing at the bottom that just shows a lot of homeless people, and the problem is just going to get worse. And I wanted to also share another slide that is from our Auburn City Needs Assessment from 2019. And I will also email that to you if I can get to it. So again, you can just see the disproportionate impact. And this is in Auburn. And these were numbers that we got in 2019 and were presented to us sometime last year. So yeah, I just wanted to make it clear that this will have a disproportionate impact here in Auburn. I don't think there's anyone on this council who feels that we should just leave people out there. That's absolutely not the point. The point is to get them into housing and to get them services. I just think we can do that without putting them in jail. So, but I just wanted to show those, so it was a little bit more clear where I got my data from, and I appreciate everyone for allowing me to share this. Oh, how do I stop sharing?
Oh, go ahead.
Wait, there's a button. Got it.
There you go.
There you go. Look how easy that was.
I know. Where is it? There it is.
All right. Thank you. Deputy Mayor DeCoursey.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple things. One, again, I just want to reemphasize that Kent's job is not going to be to put people in jail. Kent's job is going to continue to do what he does to provide the services he needs to provide to get people out of the situations that they're in. He tells remarkable stories. Here's the 14 years the guy's been homeless. He's close to getting this guy housed. Whether or not he'll stay housed, he's close. I'm even amazed that Ken can find places to put these people. I spent 25 years of my working career in affordable housing. I spent the last 8 years of my council career serving on committees regionally and nationally on affordable housing. And as I've mentioned before, our King County Regional Housing Committee has identified 44,000 units that are needed between the years 2019 and 2024. 44,000 units. The cost of those units is $18 billion. We can't write enough checks to cover the need for affordable housing, with the greatest need between 0 and 50% AMI, but the greatest immediate need is the 0 to 30%, which is typically the federally assisted housing, public housing in Section 8. Local jurisdictions don't have the wherewithal to meet that 0 to 30%, even in Auburn, without the federal assistance, without other intervention methods. It's going to take years and years and years and years to get to a point where there is not even sufficient housing, but some stability of housing where some people can take advantage of housing choices. Buying the motels that are being bought in King County, the mayor said working on initiatives within Auburn to find places where we can do some of those things. Those are important. Those are all going to help. But again, just as a point of reference, we know that housing is a key issue. We know housing is an issue. We know housing is an issue for those who are homeless, of trying to find places for them to go when they want to go to places to live. But that is not an immediate, easy, or simple solution. And it could take more than the rest of my lifetime for even a dent to be placed in that segment we call affordable housing.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councilmember Trout Manuel.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, we're talking about the people of Auburn. We're talking about all of those encampments along I-167. We're not talking about King County people. We're not talking about King County. We're talking about Auburn people. And I don't believe in putting people in jail. I feel that giving them the offer of the support that they need, being able to get a place in housing, and then the last resort, if they choose not to accept it and still be out there, then that's where we're going. But we're talking about these people in Auburn. And what I've seen out there, I have not seen the 1% or 6% or whatever Hispanics out there, because the Hispanic people believe in taking care of themselves and their families. And also they move in with other families. I hardly ever talk about it, but I come from a large family, and my father found himself with 9 children, homeless, living under a bridge in Walla Walla. We lived under this bridge for 6 months until a farmer saw my dad working on his car and his kids playing up and down the hillside, going into the vehicle and down to our camp. My dad built us a house out of cardboard boxes, and we lived there for 6 months, almost during the winter time, until they put us in the farm labor camp, where the field workers would live. But every winter they would go back to Mexico. And we lived there until 3 years later, when my dad was able to get a house after he got 2 jobs. But I know what it is kind of being homeless, because I recall I was 6 years old, and I remember being homeless and bathing out in the water. And so we need to take care of these people, and we need to think about, it's Auburn people first. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Baggett.
I might as well chime in here. I've been listening to all of the comments made by my colleagues, and I really empathize with Councilmember Brown and Councilmember Stearns and their position. And, you know, at some point here, we have to make sure that people are held accountable. And I believe the accountability here is one of the big things. Service first does work. In fact, that's kind of the way we're working right now. And it really doesn't change a lot of that. We're going to continue, Ken is going to continue doing the great job that he's doing, albeit without much help, but he gets a lot of support from our staff and working with our nonprofits here within Auburn, which we are blessed for. You know, we have probably more nonprofits than most cities in our area. And I think that taking advantage of that and allowing these people to do their job, behavioral health, mental health, drug addiction, the whole 9 yards. But the bottom line here is there has to be accountability. And for those people who are not willing to participate in the program, after we have offered, you know, the olive branch and resources to put to work for them, and places where they may be able to live that are, you know, 150% better than the way they are now. I think you've all seen all of the photographs, the slides, the videos of these areas in our environmental park and all around the city that are becoming major disaster areas. And we've also heard about all the financial cost to clean these places up. And you're going to face that same thing over and over and over again if you don't do something that has a little bit of teeth in it. And I think that as a last resort, you've heard that mentioned several times here. The whole intent here is not to criminalize our residents that are homeless, but to provide these services to them. But you're going to find people that hopefully will come around and they will take advantage of these resources we have available for them, and the nonprofits can provide for them. But there will be a very small percentage of those people who will absolutely refuse, because that's a lifestyle that they have chosen. They want to live outside. They want the freedom of choice. They don't want necessarily to have a roof over their head. They enjoy the camping routine. All the powers to be will not dissuade some of those people. I'm hoping that's a very small percentage, but we have to have accountability, and this ordinance provides that accountability as a last resort. So I hope everybody will take that into consideration as we vote for this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Baggett. Councilmember Malinga.
Thank you, Mayor Backus. I just have a very brief statement. I really appreciate the points that Councilmember Brown and Councilmember Stearns brought up. They brought up a lot of alternate solutions that I think we need to consider. I am with them and I am not in favor of this ordinance. I just, in my heart, I feel like it's wrong to put people in jail for being homeless. And I also received an email from Mary's Place, and they explain situations where folks are not able to enter temporary shelters for multiple reasons. And so those folks that can't do that, are we gonna put them in jail? I'm very concerned that this ordinance is criminalizing homelessness, and I feel this is not right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Malinga. All right, I don't see that we have any more hands raised from council. So at this time, I will ask council to unmute. All those in favor of ordinance number 6817, please say aye.
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 All opposed, please say no.
No.
Okay, I believe we have a 4-3 vote. 4 votes in favor of ordinance number 6817, 3 votes in opposition. Therefore, ordinance number 6817 does pass. And I would like to say thank you to all of our team members who continue to put in the effort to do the right thing for our community, all members of our community. And I do appreciate all of the thoughtful dialogue from council, whether in favor of or against ordinance 6817. It is clear from your comments that you are all in favor of assisting everyone in our community. And I thank you very much for your very thoughtful work. Right, we will move to resolution number 5588, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an interlocal agreement between the city of Auburn and the city of Pacific relating to the city of Pacific's Stewart Road Improvement Project. Do we have a motion? Do we have a motion? Councilmember Stearns.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move to adopt resolution 5588.
Thank you. Councilmember Troutman.
I second that, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Stearns.
There we go. Thank you, Your Honor. The resolution 5588 authorizes an agreement with the city of Pacific for the city of Auburn to contribute funding towards Pacific's Stewart Road project in the amount of $100,000. This project will be this summer and will widen Stewart Road between Valentine and Butte avenues.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from council? Hearing and seeing none, if you would unmute. All those in favor of resolution number 5588, please say aye.
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 All opposed, please say no. Resolution 5588 passes. Resolution 5590, a resolution authorizing an agreement between the city and King County to implement the 2021-2022 Waste Reduction and Recycling Grant Program and accepting program grant funds. Do we have a motion? Do we have a motion? Deputy Mayor DeCoursey. And Deputy Mayor, you are muted.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to adopt resolution 5590.
Thank you. Councilmember Stearns.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor DeCoursey.
Thank you, Mayor. This grant provides the promotion of waste reduction and recycling for businesses, residents, and schools.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from council? Hearing none, all those in favor of resolution number 5590, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Passes. All right, moving on to resolution 5591, a resolution authorizing an agreement between the city and Seattle-King County Department of Public Health to implement a 2021-2022 local hazardous waste management program and accepting program grant funds. Do we have a motion? Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to move adoption of resolution 5591.
Thank you. Councilmember Jayraj.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, resolution number 5591 will allow our city to accept a grant of $66,000 from King County for the 2021-2022 Local Hazard Waste Management Grant Program. This would involve residential hazardous waste education, school hazard waste education, and business hazard waste education.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Hearing none, all those in favor of resolution number 5591, please say aye.
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 All opposed, please say no. Passes. Thank you. Council, I will let you know that there is a level 2 evacuation in place for brush fires near Auburn. The current story is brush fire near Auburn threatens homes and prompts level 2 evacuations. And we will pray for the safety of all of those involved in this level 2 evacuation. I do know that we have at least one City of Auburn team member who is part of that evacuation. So we will keep them all in our prayers. Right, we will move to mayor and council reports. At this time, the mayor and city council may report on significant items associated with their appointed position on federal, state, regional, and local organizations. And we will begin with Deputy Mayor DeCoursey.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no report this evening.
Thank you. Councilmember Trout Manuel.
I have no report this evening, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Baggett.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a couple of brief notices here. Attending the EMAC committee meetings. This is the Emergency Management Advisory Committee for King County, which is made up of close to 100 individuals from all different businesses and resource services for all of our residents here in the Puget Sound area. And they are working diligently to come up with a major plan and outlining how they're going to perform the next Cascadia Rising drill, which will not be until next year. But the planning, obviously, for such a broad project like this, which covers the entire state of Washington, is very, very important to all of us. This will show gaps and also things that need to be addressed now and in the future in the event of a major disaster, such as an earthquake or lahar or any of those circumstances that could cause harm and injury to our residents, as well as transportation and all of the areas that you probably touch every day of your life. So this is going to be a very important activity. And right now it's being scheduled for June 13th through the 17th of next year. So stay tuned. I'll have a little more information as this project develops, and perhaps some of you individuals out there will be involved in this process when they do the drill. The second meeting that I attended also is the Regional Transit Committee. And right now they're diligently working on restructuring routes. They're also working on service reductions, which definitely could affect us here in the South End. I made a large input to the committee regarding the I-line, which is scheduled to come online perhaps with Rapid Ride, which will serve the South End in the next couple of years. The sooner the better. But we all know that the South End of King County has been poorly served with transit for many years. And what we would like to do, rather than take away from some of the other areas in the north and the east and the west, all of which will have wants and needs for their transit requirements, I just want to show a balance so that we don't have the inequity that we have right now. So that basically is what we're working on, and we're putting together our inputs as far as representation from the Sound Cities Association, or SCA as it's known as, and being a voice on this committee for our city is really an eye-opener, and I appreciate the opportunity to serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a very quick report. I would, just say that how much I appreciated Kent Hayes' work, and he does it with such grace and caring and dignity. We should be proud of the work that he's doing. I also want to just take a moment and thank Police Chief O'Neill for meeting with me late last week. He spent an hour of his very busy schedule with me to talk about issues that we're facing across this country with policing and the impacts of policing on our community. So thank you very much, Chief O'Neill. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilmember Stearns.
Thank you, Your Honor. On April 7th, I attended the Regional Water Quality Committee, and there was continued and further discussion about the proposed 2022 to 2031 sewer rate plan. And the initial proposal was to continue the 2021 increase of 4.5% for this year, nothing in 2022, and basically no increase in the even years, 22, 24, 26, 28, and 30. But starting in 23, a 10% or 10.25% increase, in 25, the same thing, and in 27, a 14% increase, and a 14% increase in 2029. So those are not final numbers, and there was discussion about maybe not having an on-off, binary approach, and maybe just sort of having a smoother rate. So those discussions are continuing to happen, and I will continue to report on them.
Thank you. Councilmember J. Raj.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have one report. I attended on April 8th, Sound Cities Association Equity and Inclusion Cabinet. We talked about a few things, and one of the things that dominated is how when we gather together, I've only gathered together with everybody twice, and then it shut down. One of the things that I felt is being left out, it was where everybody seemed to be cliquish and everybody kind of knew everybody, kind of a deal. And some of us were kind of left out of the picture. But so interestingly enough, everyone felt that way in that whole cabinet. So we suggested that we talk about that a little bit more. And one of the things that we talked about was mentorship. And Mayor, you probably know about this. And they had tried that. But I think one of the things that we came out of it is we need to contact each other in the cabinet itself and get to know each other. And I have an appointment with Issaquah's mayor in the next couple of weeks. And I'm going to spend some time with her, and we're both going to go for coffee, and we're just going to do this, and then we'll break out into different groups, and eventually we'll pass that on to the rest of the PIC members. So when the newly elected people come on board, we will approach them and not make them feel alone, but part of the team. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember J. Raj. And Councilmember Malinga.
Nothing to report, Your Honor, this evening.
All right. Thank you. I will just go over a few of the actions from the last couple of weeks. As Council, you'll remember, I've mentioned SHAPE before, the South Sound Housing Affordability Partners. And if you have looked at your upcoming agendas, you will see that there is a presentation coming before you as a proposal for us as the city of Auburn to join SHAPE, which is very similar in scope to SKIP, South King Housing and Homeless Partners, which Auburn was the lead city in developing just a couple of years ago. And that is no small task. And I am very proud of the work that we're able to do in both King and Pierce County, and look forward to your support in that regard. There are ongoing meetings. I am a member of Sound Transit Board, and there are ongoing meetings on realignment, which is looking at affordability of our entire Sound Transit 3 program, but also the Sound Transit Expansion Committee, which I am also a part of. We met on Thursday, the 8th, and those meetings are typically 2.5 to 3 hours long, and they never disappoint in going the full length of time because there are so many topics for discussion. And then that night was our Auburn Youth Town Hall, and hopefully all of you were able to listen in on that. Deputy Mayor DeCoursey was there with me. It was ran by our junior city council member, Jonathan Malinga, and chair of the junior city council, Waylon Manzia, was also there. They did a fabulous job inviting panelists and some really, really challenging questions for us all to think about and provide answers to. I am really proud of the work that they are doing and look forward to great things from them. As I mentioned that night, we are simply caretakers for them to take over our city, and we want their voice to ensure that when we hand it over to them, that it is in the shape that they want it to be in. Let's see. Last week, I had the opportunity to speak at some of the classes remotely in the Auburn School District. These were middle school classes, and it's for AVID, which, let's see, AVID stands for Advancement Via Individual Determination. What a great acronym for some really great work done by students, and was to share a little bit about my background, what my goals was. I planning on being mayor when I was younger, and the answer was no. It was not one of the things that I thought I would end up doing, but it is the greatest job I could ever have. And they ask some really, really great questions, some very basic ones like what's your favorite color, to what is your grandest accomplishment? What are you most proud of? And did that on Tuesday the 13th and also on Friday the 16th. A lot of fun. We did have a King County Regional Homelessness Authority Governance Board meeting. We heard from Mark Doan, who was recently hired as our first ever CEO of the Regional Homelessness Authority. And they provided wonderful insight into some of the work that they are hoping to implement once they come on board. So very excited. And while I did have some concerns and voiced those clearly at the meeting where we selected the CEO about making sure that we have regional approaches and sub-regional approaches, I did share that they have my full support, because ultimately the goal is for us to end homelessness. And there will be times that we agree, there will be times that we disagree, but they have my full support in the work that will need to be done. And let's see, I will leave it at that. There has been, as you can imagine, a great deal of discussion in the last few weeks on homelessness within our community by agencies, nonprofits, members of our community, and I appreciate everyone's input. It is obviously of the utmost concern that we treat everyone in our community with respect and dignity. And we have no need for an executive session tonight. So council, thank you so much for your work. We are adjourned.